The Cuphead Show is proven to be quite popular, especially with fans of the game. While the show features plenty of characters straight out of the game, like fan favorite King Dice or the Devil, as well as original characters we love like everyone's favorite Henchman. But, like many adaptations, fans have been asking for other characters from the game to cross over onto the show. And with high hopes for future seasons, we wanted to go over our picks. I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and these are the Cuphead game characters we'd like to see in the Cuphead Show. The first character we'd like to see is Cagney Carnation. Cagney is a large flower creature and the typical final boss of Inkwell Isle 1. Considering every other Isle 1 boss, save for one, has made at least a cameo in the show, it would make sense for him to pop up. Cagney is shown to be kind of crazy and more than happy to murder the cups when they come for his soul, which could make for an entertaining episode, especially with all of his weird plant-based powers. Cagney is also an interesting case because he's somewhat of a fan favorite, which makes us think he will show up at some point. The other Isle 1 character we'd like to see is Goopy Legrande. Goopy is a large slime creature jumping around in Isle 1, appearing as one of the earliest bosses you can face off against. He is a very interesting character because of the way he fights, initially with a few punches before taking some sort of steroid pill that turns him giant. We'd likely see his smaller form first, probably thinking he's too small or weak, before finding and ingesting this jelly bean. Goopy's large form is more iconic, but what really takes the cake is his death, where his own grave kills him and then attacks the cups. Likely the end of the episode would feature this grave or some other reference to it, which would be pretty cool. Moving on to Beppy the Clown. Beppy is a carnival clown you face off against in Carnival Kerfuffle, where he utilizes carnival equipment against the cups. With the first episode featuring and focusing on the Devil's Carnival, Carnival, it would have made sense for him to appear there. But it's not too late. Much like Cagney, he's a fan favorite as well, even if his fight is considered one of the harder ones. Beppy could make a very chaotic but fun episode, and we'd love to see him pop up even if it's only briefly like Sally does. Jumping forward quite a bit, we also want to see Chef Saltbaker. Saltbaker is the main villain of the Delicious Last Course DLC that came out not too long ago. It's implied he's worked with the devil to some degree, and as such it makes sense for him to pop up as one of the devil's many minions in the show, especially since Henchman, Stickler, and King Dice all make hefty appearances, and Saltbaker could even be the main antagonist of his own arc. And with Miss Chalice playing a major role, it would make sense for her mortal enemy, the villain of her DLC, to pop up as well. Now, if he pops up using the astral cookies, or even the whole cooking thing, it could be a fun way to mix up the things that Cuphead and Mugman do. In fact, maybe they could train under and later annoy him. Being such an iconic character from the DLC, it makes a lot of sense to add Saltbaker to the Cuphead show. Speaking of the DLC, the King of Games would also be an interesting character to include. He's not the most well-known or fan-favorite character, but he has a lot of potential. Being a king from a chessboard and being part of a large company of chess pieces, the king could provide an interesting plot. Have Cuphead and Mugman try to play chess with them, or even another game. Maybe Cuphead and company are turned into chess pieces, as many fans theorize that the king may have a dark side, and it could be fun to explore that angle. Another weird choice, Canteen Hughes could also be good to add to the show. Canteen Hughes is an NPC who's been popping up throughout the game since the first Isle. He's the one who introduces the cups to the aeroplanes, and even upgrades it for them in the second Isle. He's a large humanoid canteen, and much like Ludwig, it would make sense for this NPC to get an appearance. He's seen as one of the most important NPCs in the game alongside the Chalice, who become playable. He even makes another appearance in the DLC where he flies the plane that the boss fight Doggone Dogfight takes place on. Maybe he gives Cuphead, Mugman, and Chalice access to planes in the show as well, and could even become a recurring character like Bullboy. Now, we definitely have to talk about Dr. Cal and his robot. Cal's a mad scientist who lives in a junkyard and a boss you face in Isle 2. He could be an interesting character because his intelligence could rival that of others we see in the show. Maybe they mess with him while he's building and make him mess up. Or maybe they find a robot of his roaming around and try to get it back. It doesn't really matter because Cal and his robot are really fan favorites in the game, and a lot of fans would love to see them added to the show. Next up, we have the King's Court. By the King's Court, we're referring to King Dice's 9 minions you face off against in the King Dice boss fight. Each of these bosses are interesting and have a unique spin on typical gambling that makes them fun and unique. Whether it be Fair Leap with his horse betting and small sort of cameo in the show, or Chip's Bet Again with his poker theme. Each of these bosses could even have their own episodes. But the most likely scenario for these gambling villains is they'd appear in Inkwell Hell at the beginning of Season 3. The ones we'd most like to see are Mangosteen the 8-Ball, the aforementioned Chip's Bet Again, Mr. Wheezy the Living Cigar, and Piruletta, the Sentient Roulette Wheel. Sure, we're aware that Pip and Dot do make a cameo in one of the episodes, and we'd be remiss to not mention them here, though we're talking about the group as a whole. Maybe a weird one, but we also want to see the announcer pop up. The announcer is an unseen character, but he's always been around since the beginning. Now, while we don't actually see a physical form of his, we do know their voice, and they do play an important role in the game and the story. We can imagine this character existing specifically to break the fourth wall, or be a reference to the game. Maybe we meet an in-universe cartoon voice actor who has the voice and says his catchphrases. But it doesn't really matter because we think the announcer popping up would be a fun joke at worst, and a really interesting way to break the fourth wall at best. Jumping to Inkwell Isle 2 once more, we have Djimmi the Great. Djimmi is a genie and a very powerful character that we meet early on in the game. He's one of the first bosses in Isle 2. We think he'd have a really fun and interesting episode, and is probably one of the more requested bosses we've seen, beyond Kala and Bonbon. Djimmi is full of surprises, and with magic, he can make a really fun episode at the least. But more likely than not, he'd be a fun trickster who plays around with Cuphead and Mugman. Maybe the entire episode could feature elements of mythology that Djimmi comes from, or the Egyptian themes his entire battle has. He would also benefit from a really good voice actor, and he could be like Ribby and Croaks or even King Dice, where he makes multiple appearances over the seasons just to have a lot of unique plots. We'd like to see Cuphead and Mugman get 3 wishes from Djimmi, and have them go wrong like a monkey's paw. Djimmi could be benevolent and helpful, or he could be a malicious dude who likes to ruin people's wishes, just for fun so that he could do what he wants. This character has a lot of potential. Moving on, we have Rumor Honeybottoms. Rumor is the queen of the bees, a large bee that exists in a giant honeycomb on Isle 3. Now, the reason we think she needs to appear, and quickly, is because of what we've seen in the show so far. The police force on Inkwell Isle are all bees, much like the security bees in Rumor's hive. This implies to us that Rumor has some sort of a high status on the Inkwell Isle. We think she could be the chief of police, or maybe even in a higher rank. Rumor would make a really interesting episode, especially since Chalice is likely on the most wanted list, and Cuphead and Mugman keep avoiding jail time for their crimes, which we've dissected before. Now, a lot of people hate Rumor because she is exceedingly difficult, so it would be nice to include her as a very hateable character in the show. Moving back to the DLC, we think Mortimer Freeze would be a good option to add as well. Of the many DLC bosses, Mortimer is an interesting case, being the leader of an icy cult that worships him as far as we're aware. This snow miser looking fella is full of tricks and has a lot of potential for a unique plot. He could try to convince Cuphead, Mugman, or Miss Chalice to join his cult, or the show could make him a play on some sort of religious leader. Mortimer's ice abilities could also come into play, trying to freeze the Isles in a supervillain-esque plan. Also from the DLC, we have Sheriff Esther Winchester. Esther is the sheriff on Inkwell Isle 4. However, she seems to be corrupt to a certain degree, as she not only faces off against the Cups, but lives shockingly close to moonshiners and does nothing about it. She uses literal snake oil against her opponents, which implies she may sell it to unsuspecting commoners, and she turns into a can of sausage at the end of her fight. We think that she would make a fun episode, especially considering, like Rumor, she could have connections with the police, which we've already seen throughout the show. Maybe she's like a bounty hunter who tries to find and arrest Cuphead and Mugman for escaping prison, as we saw at the beginning of Season 2. Esther could even be a corrupt cop with the Moonshine Mob, and maybe even help Cuphead and Mugman escape the law. Which brings us to the final character we'll be talking about today, the aforementioned Moonshine Mob. The Moonshine Mob are a group of anthropomorphic criminal bugs who appear during the DLC. Now, much like Esther, there's a lot of possible ways to take the story of these bugs. They could be moonshiners as we see in the game, or we could see them as more general criminals that the Cups accidentally run into, or something completely different. With each of the members and their distinct personalities, it would be a shame not to use them, especially since criminals like this could be buying or selling in Porkrind's black market, and we could even see a whole episode dedicated to them, like in the case of the Root Pack. But let us know in the comments section which Cuphead game character that hasn't appeared in the show yet you would most like to see in a future season, and tell us what we should cover next. Make sure to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.